Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 2nd of November 2021. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So, ENS, the Ethereum name service, we all know and love it. We all hopefully have our .eth names. Today, they announced that they are going to be decentralizing. Now, this means that they're going to be doing a token called the ENS governance token. They'll be doing an airdrop, and details of this airdrop will be shared in a week from today. Now, there are a lot more stuff, a lot more things going on here than just the token. As I said, they're trying to decentralize their governance process, and they currently have a call for governance delegates up here, so you can basically nominate someone or kind of put yourself up if you want to become one of the DAO delegates for ENS. And now, what I wanted to kind of like talk about was another topic that related to this. And actually, I'm going to talk about that in a sec, because there were some more details that Amit23 here shared in the Daily Gwei Discord channel today about how this token is going to be kind of like given out and kind of like some background about it. So, essentially, the snapshot was taken on October 31st, so don't go and buy ENS names now just for like farming the airdrop. You won't be able to do that as the snapshot, but it's already been taken. As I said, more details about the token distribution and claim process will be released a week from today. So November 8th, or a week from yesterday, I should say. Those who purchased a .eth domain from OpenSea prior to the announcement are eligible for the airdrop. And what I found really interesting was ENS did not receive any funding from VCs. All of their revenue is from domain sales, so ENS sales over the years, and remaining unused in the and remains unused in the treasury since inception of the project. Now, from memory, there's a lot of money in there. I don't know exactly how much, but there's a lot. And some more details about how the ENS DAO will be governed by the community, and the token holders can delegate and vote and all that good stuff there. Now, what I was saying before is the topic that I wanted to focus on around kind of like ENS doing a token is a topic that always gets brought up when one of these things do a token that people don't expect to do a token, where they say, they want kind of like some projects within the community that they consider to be true public Ethereum goods to not have a token. Now, and like in perpetuity. Now, I get that. I get that view. I get that some people think that tokens are just like these speculative vehicles that are just there for like moon boys to attach to and to pump and dump and all that sort of stuff. I think that there are plenty of things like that for sure. I don't think that the legitimate projects in this space do a token for that. Yes, there are obviously like investors that want to return on their investment. And yes, obviously there's team members who should really have a stake in their protocol and be able to kind of like have a share in their protocol. But the way I view tokenizing is kind of like going public, right? With ENS tokens, it's a governance token, so it's going to be able to be used in governance, of course, just like most of the other tokens. But that's not the only thing it can do. I'm sure it's going to be able to do other things, or governance will be able to vote in other value accrual mechanisms. But just generally from the point of, wanting projects not to do a token, I don't know. I feel like it goes against the very ethos of this community and of this kind of like, of the Ethereum ecosystem, where we're trying to decentralize everything, and you can't decentralize everything without a kind of like, a carrot, essentially, a carrot and a stick to get people to want to participate in decentralized governance, and to get them to want to actually come together and coordinate to do governance to begin with. So, for example, like right now, ENS is just a bunch of multi-sig holders that kind of like hold access to that treasury and have a few kind of like other powers, whereas that could never change unless you did a token, because how many people are you going to get up to step up to the plate to actually participate in a decentralized governance process? Not many. And really, at the end of the day, there's not many that you can trust either. So by handing over governance to the community, you can work to essentially, have the community have a stake in the good stewardship and the good governance of the ENS protocol, for example. And then that kind of motivates them to stay on top of it and to get more involved. This basically applies to every project. It's not just for ENS. But whenever one of these public good projects does a token, it's always kind of like the same kind of talking points. And I just wanted to add a bit more clarity there. I've been saying for a long time now, I've repeated it so many times before, and I hope you guys are kind of like listening to my alpha here, but I've repeated it so many times that everything crypto related is pretty much going to have a token. And again, there's that asterisk, except the Daily Gwei. I'm not going to do a token, guys, but everything else will, especially these things that it actually makes sense for them to do a token, especially these kind of like big projects and big services that are used by tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people. Things like that. I expect them to keep doing tokens and those services to do tokens, especially when it makes sense as part of a decentralized governance process as well. So yeah, I'm actually most excited about the fact that they haven't taken any VC funding or anything like that. I'm sure obviously there's going to be a team allocation and everything, and you know, knowing the Ethereum kind of name service team or the ENS team, they've been around for a very long time. They're not going to give themselves like a 50% of the pie, even though I actually wouldn't mind if they did that because it's their project. But at the same time, it doesn't make sense because if they want to decentralize the governance out, they need to be a smaller holder. But you also want them to kind of have a large stake because they created it and want to reward them for all their past work. I'm not sure what the token distribution looks like. I'm sure they're going to announce that when they announce how the airdrop is going to be distributed. But essentially, I just have no issue with this. I think it's really cool that they're doing this. I think that it's about time, to be honest, and I'm really glad that they're getting rewarded. But I'm really curious to see how this is being distributed. I feel like they would have gone for an airdrop distribution where they essentially cut out all the domain squatters, because there's a lot of people who bought, commonwords.eth because they were squatting on it, hoping to sell it to someone else later on, like people's common names and stuff like that. I'm sure there's plenty of those, but there are ways to do it where you can do an airdrop to ENS holders and bypass the squatters. So essentially, you'd probably just want to drop the ENS token to people who are using the ENS. So that means tying your actual Ethereum address to your ENS name. And a lot of squatters don't do that because they're not using them. They're just squatting on them. As you guys know, an ENS name is an NFT, so they're trying to sell them on OpenSea and flip them. So I'm sure that they would have kind of like done a snapshot in such a way where to weed out those domain squatters, which is going to be cool to see. But I'm very curious to see how much goes to the community, how much goes to like a treasury, how much is going to the team. And, there's no VCs. Amazing, right? Like this is going to be one of the only governance tokens out there that doesn't have any VC allocation, which is pretty awesome, I believe. But yeah, anyway, more details on this in about a week, and I'll definitely cover that when the details come out. So Michael Sproul here from the Sigma Pi team has put together a quick summary of staking rewards in Post-Altair. So some of you will have noticed that your staking rewards on your ETH2 validators go up sometimes. And this is because of a new kind of like feature that went live in Altair called sync committees. So as Michael describes here, the new sync committees feature has created a new role for validators. Every 256 epochs or 27 hours, a new random group of 512 validators is selected to publish sync committee messages, which are similar to attestations. So if you observe substantially higher rewards for a day or two without any block proposals, then your validator is likely a member of a sync committee. Rewards for block proposals are 4 times higher than previously. This is to incentivize efficient and timely block production. So essentially there's been a bit of a reshuffling of the rewards here, a reweighting of the rewards, but also the introduction of sync committees, which gives people that are part of the sync committee more rewards for their role there. Now, 512 validator shuffle every 27 hours means that you're not going to be part of a sync committee very often because of the fact that we have 250,000 validators. I'm not going to do the math in my head, but I would say that the current amount of validators, it probably wouldn't even get through a kind of like whole set during a year. So, and as I said, it's like kind of randomly shuffled, so there's no way to kind of like know who's going to come next and stuff like that. But that's kind of like why you might be observing more rewards if you have been lucky enough to be part of a sync committee this early on, because Altair's only been live for what, a week? Not even a week yet, I don't think. So yeah, really cool to see that. And there's a few other changes in here that Michael goes through, and he also links to further reading from Vitalik on explaining sync committees and how they enable light clients, which I went through last week. Pintail's modeling of the Altair reward changes, which I either highlighted on the Refuel or I definitely retweeted it on Twitter. In case you missed this is also a really good read. I'll link it in the YouTube description. And then also some scripts for viewing the current sync committees, which Michael has built himself and put out there on GitHub to check out. So yeah, definitely check out this very short blog post, but the further reading as well to learn more about this if you're interested. I'm sure all the solo stakers among us are definitely interested in that. So there hasn't been too many updates on the merge lately, but the Ethereum cat herders has put together a couple of videos about the merge. So there's this video on the this playlist called the merge, which includes two. I think it included two videos. If I click on it right here, I'll actually be able to see it. I don't think it'll autoplay. Yeah, so it includes kind of like two videos here. Peep and EIP merging Ethereum with Paul Horner, who works at Sigma Prime on Lighthouse, and then Peep and EIP number 41, which is an older video on EIP 3675, which is the EIP for the merge, essentially. So upgrading the consensus to proof of stake with Mikhail Kalinin. So yeah, if you want to get like more context around the merge, definitely give these two videos a watch. They're about an hour each here. But for those of you who don't know, the Ethereum cat herders YouTube channel is kind of pretty much a gold mine for this, for a lot of these videos. If you click here on videos, there is a ton here that you can watch. Like I've watched all of them, and it doesn't show up here because I've actually got like multiple YouTube accounts. This is the Daily Gwei account. On my Sassal account, on my normal YouTube account, I've watched pretty much all of these. This is, I mean, and the thing is, they don't have many views, but they basically describe a lot of the Ethereum core development stuff in, I mean, not so much plain English, but it basically gives you an overview and allows you to kind of like understand what's going on. And these are pretty frequent videos as well. There's one or two every week, and they cover various things within the ecosystem. Like you can see one here about Verkle tries. You can see one here about standard signature validation methods for contracts. Like as I said, it's not all kind of like high level, but it is technical. One with Vitalik about the block gas limit a couple of months ago. I mean, there's plenty here, and it goes back quite a while. Like stateless Ethereum. They've been doing this for a while, and for those who don't know who the Ethereum cat herders are, they're essentially a kind of like decentralized project management for Ethereum, as they describe themselves here. And they were actually born out of the fact that we needed better ways and more ways to kind of like coordinate at the core developer level. And we basically needed a link between the core devs and like the wider community in order to keep the wider community appraised with what's happening at the core dev level, and keep the core devs kind of like apprised on what's happening at the community level. So they kind of act as a link there. And I think the name's pretty funny. Ethereum cat herders, like the Ethereum has kind of like used cats as part of its culture, the same as used Doge as part of its culture. So that's why it's called Ethereum cat herders there. But yeah, I mean, off topic there, but definitely check out the kind of like YouTube videos here. It'll be linked in the description for you to go check out. So one thing that I feel like has flown under the radar that I talked about a few months ago on the refuel, but now it is ready to be onboarded, is the Aave DAI Direct Deposit Module, or the D3M, which is ready to be onboarded onto Maker Protocol. Now, what does this module do? People asked me today to cover this, and I will cover it as best I can. Hopefully I don't get anything wrong here. But essentially what this allows for, it allows Aave to directly mint DAI from Maker itself. So you can imagine Aave as like a regular user that wants to take out, a DAI kind of like loan with like a CDP or a vault. And then instead of them having to go through that process, because they're a protocol, of course, they can't go through the normal process. They've got direct kind of like integration with Maker as a protocol, which means that Maker can feed DAI into Aave as it's needed, and also Aave can pay back the DAI as it's not needed. So as the interest rates kind of like vary, as the supply and demand varies. There's a lot more obviously talk in this Twitter thread about it, and you can go give this a read. But hopefully that explains to you what it is. I mean, I like these little images that they've used here. But essentially, because DAI is in such high demand to borrow, instead of having to go through the kind of like the slower process of getting DAI from the open market and from individual users, the Aave protocol can source its own DAI from Maker, which I think is really, really cool. It's a really great integration. Now, what I really wanted to focus on top of this was the fact that these two protocols are considered quote unquote boomer DeFi, but they are doing some of the most innovative stuff right now. Like this is huge innovation here. Like protocol to protocol kind of like DAI minting is a first. This hasn't been done before. I know there's been protocol to protocol lending before with kind of like the Iron Bank, but I don't know what the status of that is. It seems to have fallen on the wayside, but it was a bit different, I think, to what Maker's doing here with Aave. And obviously Maker and Aave are much bigger than Cream and Alpha Finance were as part of the Iron Bank. So to see such two juggernauts of the industry, of the DeFi industry, kind of like teaming up on this, it's really, really great to see. And especially, it's funny because like when I think back to DeFi Summer, Aave was like the darling, right? Even throughout this year, Aave was like the darling. Everyone held the token. It was like mooning. And then obviously over the last kind of few months, it's underperformed the rest of the market, and so has MKR. But we all know that. Degen Spartan reminds us all the time on Twitter that the MKR ETH pair is at all-time lows, so I don't think I have to remind you of that. But I was actually checking it the other day on Aave, and Aave ETH, I think it's down like 70 or 80% against ETH since the top, something ridiculous. And if you had told people that like a year ago, they would have laughed at you and be like, no way, like Aave, DeFi tokens are so bullish, like ETH is not going to capture all the value. ETH wasn't that much. I mean, a year ago, ETH was like, what was it, November? It was like $400-500 or something. Not even $500. It was probably like 400. I mean, not even 400. ETH actually moved up really quickly end of last year. So it might have even been under $400 back then. But I mean, the point is that it went from being like one of the most bullish tokens to now being down 80% against ETH. But, and that's not the only one. I mean, I saw someone yesterday kind of like make fun of the YFI token because at one point, one YFI equaled like 110 ETH or something, and now it equals like 8 ETH. So if you had bought that, you'd be down over 90% against ETH. And it's pretty much like all of these DeFi tokens, except some of the newer ones that market themselves as DeFi 2.0. But the thing is, those DeFi 2.0 tokens, and I'm doing these in like air quotes, they started at a much smaller base than kind of like the rest of these. So it's going to be curious to see if these kind of like new crop of DeFi tokens end up 80 to 90% down against ETH over the next year, which, it's probably pretty good bet that they will. Like, not to try and FUD anything here, but whenever I see people kind of like FUDding and calling this boomer DeFi, I kind of think to them, guys, like, you've seen like 2-3 months worth of these new DeFi tokens performing well because they started from like a really low market cap as well. Let's see how they perform over the long term, because it's all well and good that you have a token that goes up in price, but your protocol needs to keep growing. It needs to keep onboarding users, it needs to keep onboarding liquidity, and your token needs to retain value. And it's very, very hard to get a token to retain value, as I've gone through on the refuel numerous times, especially against ETH, where most of these tokens people just don't want to hold. Like, and especially if it keeps underperforming, it just becomes a thing of like, that famous quote, losers average losers, which basically means that losing investors always double down on something that's losing. They say, okay, well, this kind of thing fell from $30 to $20. I'm going to buy here. Then it falls from $20 to $10, and I'm going to buy again. Then it falls to $5, and you buy again. Like, you're DCAing on the way down, but eventually it just like keeps bleeding and never goes back up. Obviously, there are some that this doesn't apply to. Like, for example, ETH. If you had averaged down ETH even during 2018. While it was coming down off its all-time high, you would be up now. But the point is that you want to go with the momentum, right, when it comes to these sorts of things. And this is an investment advice, but the momentum is kind of like there for a little while going up, and then it just like, it can be painful on the way down as well. But tying it all back to the main point I'm trying to make here is that just because the tokens aren't performing well doesn't mean these protocols aren't growing. Aave is huge, Maker's huge, DAI supply is at all-time high. They're still doing these really cool integrations. So I think that people need to stop focusing so much on the token performance of these things and focus more on the technology, because when you look at what they're actually doing, it's really, really cool. And they're well capitalized to build for a very long time. And they're going to bring a lot of value into the ecosystem. Without protocols like Maker or Aave, a lot of the ones, the newer DeFi protocols couldn't even exist, both from a regulatory standpoint and also from a kind of like market perspective, because Maker, Aave, Uniswap, all those Gen 1, as people like to call them, DeFi, they're still around and they're still juggernauts of the industry, and they're still providing the critical infrastructure that most of the industry needs, most of DeFi needs, in order to keep growing. So yeah, just a bit of comments around that, because I've been seeing that for months now. Too many people making fun of these protocols for their, and kind of like actually FUDding the protocol themselves, when in reality it's fine to go after the token because some of them have bad token designs. I actually don't think Aave's token design is bad. I think it's just been it kind of like suffered after it went up so quickly, and then it kind of came down from there. The MKR token definitely needs a complete revamp. I'm not even going to defend it there. I have owned MKR once in my life, and that was for a very brief period of time. And it's funny, like, I actually had someone ask me in 2019, like, why don't you own MKR? Because Maker was like the most bullish DeFi project back then with a token. And I said, I don't think it's going to outperform ETH over the long term. I even back then, I knew it wasn't going to outperform ETH, and it hasn't. It's at all-time lows against ETH. I'm not, because I don't think MKR's token design is good at all. And they're trying to change, right? There's a few proposals out there, and there's newer kind of like token designs as part of these DeFi 2.0 projects that I actually think are really good. But still, it doesn't matter how good the token design is. If the market prices in, the next 2 years worth of growth within 2 months, it has to give it back at some point. That's exactly what happens with a lot of these tokens. They end up just like, because markets are forward looking, the market basically says, well, we think that this protocol is going to be absolutely massive. It's going to keep growing for years to come. So we're going to price it that way. But the thing is that the crypto market is nowhere near that sophisticated. It prices it like that on the hype and the FOMO, and then eventually it stops going up, and it just bleeds for a long time because the protocol takes much longer to grow than they thought it would. And it's just the nature of how projects work and how protocols grow. So from that perspective, these protocols they price in their growth way too quickly, and then they have to give it all back. Especially for the ones that have liquidity mining programs where people just farm and dump the tokens. It's really brutal. And I'm not going to go on about it anymore here because I've talked about it a lot before, but I just really think that people should focus more on the technology side of these things. If you're holding one of these tokens and you're feeling a bit down because you're down in ETH or down in US dollars, I mean, that's a separate thing. Like, hate, if you're going to hate something, hate the token. Don't hate the protocol because the token hasn't performed well. It's kind of like, buying ETH at $4,000 the first time and then ETH going down to $2,000 and being like, oh, well, I'm super bearish on ETH now. I hate Ethereum. It's going to zero. Ethereum's, broken, whatever. It's just a dumb thing to think. Like, token prices are detached both ways from reality. And that's why it's going to be for a long, long time. This market is not going to become efficient for a very long time. So from that perspective, just pay more attention to the actual fundamental tech stuff happening rather than the token prices, and I think you'll be better off for it. So exciting update from Polygon. So a lot of users have been stuck before on the Polygon POS chain without MATIC tokens to pay for gas fees. Well, now 0.02 MATIC will actually be airdropped to a user if their address has less than 0.02 MATIC when they are depositing funds from Ethereum to Polygon. So you can send ETH directly from Ethereum to Polygon. Even, say you've even sent a lot of ETH across, like, say 2-3 ETH across, and then you're stuck on Polygon because you don't have any MATIC. Well, now you'll get airdropped MATIC airdropped to you automatically. Now, 0.02 is obviously not a lot. Like, what is MATIC right now? Almost $2. 0.02 is going to be $2 worth of MATIC. But MATIC fee is Polygon POS chain fees are so cheap that that's actually going to allow you to either buy some more MATIC on SushiSwap or QuickSwap or something that's on the POS chain to kind of bolster yourself there, because it's not meant to be just giving you free money, right? It's meant to be just giving you enough to do some transactions, which I think is awesome. This has been a pretty big complaint, and I've seen in the Daily Gwei community especially, so I'm glad to see that they've kind of they've rectified this here as well. So, yeah, I mean, really, really great to see. And I think, what else do they say here? The receiver will be airdropped 0.02 MATIC, provided their balance is less than 0.02 MATIC, and the transfer is from a selected top 20 to 30 tokens. So basically, yeah, I mean, it can't just be any token that you bridge across. It has to be a selected top 20 to 30 token, which makes sense. The thing about a lot of these kind of like airdrops and things like this is that you got to be careful with gaming around it, because you could have someone game it and just like get a lot of MATIC tokens, and kind of like farm a lot of free money. But I mean, the fees going from like Ethereum to Polygon is so large that it's not even worth it, because bridging across already costs a lot in Ethereum layer 1 fees. So it wouldn't be worth it to bridge across and then claim $2 because you already spent more to get there, right? For example. So this is definitely more just to help out the users who get stranded on the POS chain sometimes because of the fact that they just didn't have any MATIC when they bridged across. So really, really cool to see this from Polygon here. So McDonald's is doing an NFT called the McRib NFT. Basically, it's a random giveaway, I believe. You can basically retweet for a chance to win one of 10 of these McRib NFTs, and kind of like quote tweeted this and said, "Built on Ethereum, I'm loving it," like playing on the McDonald's kind of like marketing slogan there. But, someone pointed out to me that it actually wasn't built on Ethereum, which I found weird, because in their in their post here, they basically say Ethereum somewhere here. They say you need to kind of like have an Ethereum wallet to be able to get this NFT. But then someone else said it was built on a different network, and then I didn't really follow it up. So I'm not 100% sure if it's built on Ethereum. I think it is. I don't see why they would build it on anything else. Really, it doesn't make much sense to put it on anything else. And the funny thing is, like, people were kind of like making jokes about this and like, why would I want this? Who would want this? But honestly, I kind of want it. I haven't even retweeted to enter the competition because I don't think I'm going to win. I mean, look at how many entries there are. But I kind of want it just because it's like McDonald's first NFT. I don't even know if it's going to be worth much or anything. But like, it'd just be cool to have a McDonald's NFT, don't you think? Like, I don't really eat their food these days, but it's still cool, right? So yeah, I mean, the funny thing is, I've talked about it a lot on the Refuel about how like NFTs are that thing that are going to bring in everyone. And I'm not just talking about like end users, I'm talking about corporations. Like, this is just a perfect marketing ploy for them. Look at the engagement they got on this tweet and look at how many people replied. All the crypto people would have replied to this. The crypto people have large followings. I mean, it's easy free marketing for them. Issue these 10 NFTs, call them limited edition, run a competition, and kind of like jump onto like the NFT kind of hype. And there's plenty of kind of like companies and stuff that have done this already. Obviously, TikTok is with Immutable X and ESL as well. And there's so many. I mean, and there's going to be more coming. It's really not. It's really not a surprise to see this at all. Like, I saw this last night. I think I was either on my computer or in bed, and I looked at it and I'm like, I wasn't shocked at all. I look at, okay, McDonald's is doing NFTs. I've come to expect this now because of the fact that it doesn't make sense for them not to do this because of all the free marketing and being able to kind of like attach themselves to a trend that is pretty big already, but it's probably going to get even bigger into the future. So, I mean, if you want to enter into this and you haven't already, it'll be linked in the YouTube description. You can go retweet it. But I think I'm gonna sit this one out. I'm curious to see what their secondary market value actually ends up being. They probably will be worth something, given that there's only 10 of them and it's McDonald's first NFT. So we'll have to see how that goes there. But anyway, last thing to talk about is another tweet from Polynya here, who says, modular execution layers give you 10 times to 100 times data compression, very large number times compute efficiency. Parallel data availability layers gives you 10x to 1000x data capacity. These compound together, which means that you can get infinite times monolithic long term. So infinite more of scalability versus the monolithic chains. And volitions retain full composability over multiple data availability layers. That's all. And then Polynya goes on to say, I imagine a long-term future where there'll be thousands of execution layers, hundreds of data availability layers, and a few settlement layers. And each of those thousands of execution layers can outscale any monolithic blockchain. Only way to global scale. Power laws apply. Just Polynya doing their thing as usual. What I wanted to kind of like focus on though was that, I talk a lot about rollups on the Refuel, but I don't talk about validiums and volitions too often. Now, the reason why I don't is because, there's validiums that are live today, but I think the more interesting thing is a volition. So just a quick recap here. A validium allows the kind of like developer of the like layer 2, or it's not technically a layer 2, but essentially like this layer on top of Ethereum to choose where the data to put the data off chain. So they can put it as part of an off chain data availability committee, and they will do this so they don't have to put the data on chain. They only put the proofs on chain, and the costs are considerably less. Now, obviously, you have less security because of this, and there are kind of like censorship concerns with withholding data and all that sort of stuff. But Validium was only a short-term solution. The golden solution here is a volition, which is what this is what Starkware calls it. But essentially what a volition does is it gives users the choice. Do they want to be in Validium mode? So do they want to essentially put their data in the off-chain data availability committee? That's fine. That has been set up by whatever kind of like app they're using. Or do they want to store their data on their own, like either on their own server or on their own PC or wherever? And that is extremely powerful. And you can also store it on layer 1 Ethereum as well, mind you. So, for example, imagine you're a kind of, I don't know if it was Uri or Eli from Starkware gave this example on the Delphi Digital podcast the other day. But they basically said, imagine you're a trader on DYDX. DYDX is a rollup, but imagine DYDX was a volition. And say you really wanted to keep like your costs like really, really, really low, but you wanted to do like a lot of trades. Well, what you would do is you would be in Validium mode for like the whole day doing all your trades. And then when you want to settle out your transactions, you switch to roll up mode because this is a volition. And then you settle onto Ethereum layer 1, the settlement layer. You put it there. So, and what that does is it essentially allows you to guarantee that that is secured by Ethereum layer 1. And you've always got access to that, and you've always got access to your funds because of that. So, I mean, this is just using Ethereum as a settlement layer in an even better way, which I think is really, really exciting. And Polynya just puts it really well here by by kind of like calling this out and how this is going to enable like extremely great scalability. And volitions are also kind of like composable across shards and stuff like that too. So, I mean, there's so much cool stuff happening in this space, in the layer 2 space. I'm coming up on time here, but definitely keep an eye on volitions coming out soon. ZK Porter from ZK Sync, and there's going to be other solutions from the other kind of layer 2 teams as well. So definitely looking forward to all of that. But I think on that note, that's time for today. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give that video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks everyone.